Okay, hello, welcome to this video. Thanks everybody for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and Candace and one another. I am here with my beautiful sister and dear friend Candace, and we just have these organic conversations, and it's like we have them about all kinds of things. And so we're going to kind of cover some gene key, where we're at in the gene keys a little bit today, and also just talking about some like real life things, and which we always do, but part of this, some of the subjects are shedding old skin. This is the stage that I'm in, that I'm sharing personally where I'm at. I'm in a very uncomfortable stage right now of my journey, and I know it's temporary, but I'll share a little bit of that because I'm sure other people are in that stage as well. We're going to talk a little bit about projection, and then at the end, maybe we'll do a little light language, and just to kind of move the energies around a little bit, depending on what we're called to do. So do you want to start with the gene key
I
reading,
would love
Candace?
to. I would love to. So, if anybody's watching this and they are not familiar with the gene keys and they are familiar with astrology, the gene keys link up to the astrological placements. So, the background foundational chart of the gene keys is all of the keys. There's 64 of them, and they're all set around a wheel, just like the astrological wheel, and how as we're moving through space, the picture and the alignments are shifting. So we get the keys through the planets that are moving around the wheel, Earth and center, and each of those planets will line up with specific keys as they're moving around. And
Also a little
then,
of the I Ching as well, right?
yeah, that is also connected to the 64 keys. And then the 64 keys themselves are each the arcs, the degrees of astrology. So they, like, the system links into human design, the I Ching, and astrology,
Cool.
and is constantly shifting. So when we're reading the key of the now, it is it connects to your own, in relation to your own birth chart. It impacts everybody the same way the changing of the weather would, if you will.
Yeah.
So the key that the sun is in, which is with the gene keys considered your life's work, it's in gene key 53, which is moving from the shadow frequency of immaturity and moving up into the gift frequency of expansion, and moving from that into the acidic frequency of superabundance. So we all may be individually experiencing a variety of these different flavors. With the immaturity, there may be aspects of us that are in the maturation process.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be highlighted, while we also may simultaneously be experiencing aspects of us that are expanding at the gift frequency. We could be experiencing the level of maturity outwardly in that which is coming to us in the world that is not yet matured. And then we may be experiencing some things outwardly that are in superabundance, which could be people who have already attained those levels of embodiment that are coming to us and bringing that to us, hanging on the immaturity into expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that kind of shows all the different layers of textures of experience that this highlights.
So as you were saying maturity, I'm hearing the match key, like the match you are IT, like maturity. So I'm hearing the match frequency. It's matching kind of where our maturity is at. It's kind of showing us where we've come from. So for me, I'll just go into that briefly. And I'm seeing a T as in a cross, like crossing our I, dotting our I's, crossing our T's. And it's almost like we're at that, I'm being shown some of us are at a crossroads, and we're in that space of stepping forward into our maturity and embracing a little bit higher version of ourselves. And this can be, and this is, it's so funny, I have goosebumps now as I say that. So I'm on the right track. As you were saying that, so for me this morning, and you and I were talking about this, I'm going through a very different, different, and it's not really difficult. I think years ago it would have felt more difficult than it is now, but it's highly uncomfortable. And it literally feels like, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I really felt it this morning, of stretching and expanding. And you and I talked about it like we're at capacity. So it's time to shed the old skin so we can step into a bigger, more broad, but at the same time, centrally focused. So for me, it's not about expanding out into all these different subsets and all these different bubbles, although it always is that for me. Obviously, that's what I write about, is I that's how I speak my language. But my focus is less on everybody else. My focus gets more back into my landscape, my domain, my dominion. And this can feel, we're being reintroduced, right, into regrouping. What does that look like for me? Who do I see in my periphery that is a reflection, a true reflection of me, or better spoken, who I am, that I see now, stepping into this bigger version of me. So I'm noticing, and this, we could go into so many different layers here, but I wanted to let you speak because I'm sure there was a bunch that brought up.
Yeah. Well, I'm just hearing you speak, and it's like you're expanding from your center. You're not projecting yourself out mentally forward and in all these directions. You're literally now coming really deeply into yourself, and from yourself, from your point, from the cross point within yourself, and expanding and stretching. And that gives me the visual of like the tree trunk is growing. The tree was a small trunk, and now the trunk is expanding, which is going to have implications all the way up and down. And the immaturity and immatched. So it's like things that were a match, a vibrational match from the old smaller trunk self, are cycling back around again, saying, hey, are we still a match? And you're just kind of like, wow, no longer is this a match for me. I am in this maturation, expansion, shedding cycle. And all of these old invitations are coming back around, and you're feeling it and experiencing it in a completely different way, as like your old self coming back. And you're seeing, I'm shedding that version of myself, which is connected to all of these old experiences or avenues or areas that you would have participated in, but it's just changed now. The way that you're facilitating your reality, yourself, and your own experience is changed and shifting now. And that's, we're coming into that.
And this is something too that I think is powerful to talk about. About, like, I've been seeing a lot of spiritual teachers, and I say spiritual teacher because we're all spiritual teachers, right? But there's some people that share their experiences like what we're doing on social media. And I've been seeing a lot of people that are just like, I'm done. I'm stepping away, or I feel like I'm done. Like, I feel like, and I think this is important to recognize, because sometimes our cycle is complete. And what we're interested in speaking about no longer matches up to what we used to speak about. And our perspective has shifted on what we used to speak about. And it's no longer relevant, but like you said, somebody else might be stepping into that role. And so we fulfilled that role. And there's certain people will have expectations for anybody that's out there on social media. And it's not like I have this huge connection with social media, but we all have connection points that we've established through social media platforms. And that's how we share our journey, our messages, just synchronicities and all of that. But those who created established certain portals, relationships, connection points, data points, nodes, intersection, and all of that is regrouping. Therefore, those nodes, that information is different than it was from another perspective. And I know I'm going into 5 different topics, but what I'm seeing is a huge shift in that platform and how people are now showing up to share their information. And so some of us might be going through those adjustments, and it's like, now what do I want to talk about? Now what do I want to bring to the table? Who am I now? And it may require us to essentially say, no, we're just done with that old platform.
Yeah.
And
It
certain
reminds
people are going to
me.
have those expectations of like, no. And we're like, yeah, that's on you. That projection of what I should be saying or speaking about or doing is your projection. And that's, but go ahead.
Well, even who we are in another one's eyes may not be. It's we're being seen and witnessed through someone else's filter at their point of maturation cycle. So as they mature, how they see us may change. As we mature, how they see us may change, and they want to hold us in a point in time that they really related with, but that is no longer. And that's a really interesting thing about social media, is the opportunity to see someone as they grow, and even see someone as you grow. And perhaps you're growing and they're not, or perhaps they're growing and you're not. You know, we all have our different rates of expansion. And I was getting the visual of like this, your favorite band who like made this CD, and you love the CD and you see them as this time capsule, but they have now reinvented themselves and now they're doing this. And you're like, that's not you, but that's not you. And they're like, who do you think I am? Like, I am shifting. I am going to shift every album. I want to make all types of music. And you're just like, the fan base is angry.
I totally see that. It's funny. And, you know, we all go through, you know, growth, and we don't want to listen to the same music anymore. And so I'm not here to make the same music. I'm not the same. I am the conductor of my orchestra. And my orchestration now lines up with a completely different conduction than it did before. That doesn't mean, boy, we could go into so many different layers here.
Right. Because like, it's like, well, does that mean that it wasn't true? It's like, it was true at the time. It was relevant at the time. And it was relevant through that lens and that experience and that degree.
Yeah.
And now it's shifted.
It's not.
And it's such a surreal and wild experience. Even to time capsule yourself and go back and watch a video of your old self. And you're like, that person doesn't exist anymore. That expression doesn't exist anymore. That understanding has shifted. It's like, yeah, it's really wild. It's not as though the truth changes. It's our experience and our capacity to harness varying levels and degrees of truth as we embody it.
Yeah.
We're embodying, you know, if we're on an upward spiral or on an expansive trajectory, we're going to be embodying more and more of our soulfulness, housing more and more of our own energy and our own light as we expand, really deeply incorporating all of the energy that we speak into our day-to-day lives. And that will shift us. And some of us are on and want to be on an accelerated path, which is why I feel we've chosen this time, because this is a very accelerated time of humanity, where it's just like a crapshoot. It is like everything all at once, from all degrees, from all angles. And the internet really does speed up the incubation. It can speed up the incubation. It can, by expediting the agitation and forcing pressure. Many will become degraded by that because they won't be able to handle it, but many will flourish from it. Many will go and use it as transformational agitation, and it will fortify them.
Yeah. And what does agitation do in a washing machine? It clears it out, it cleans it, it cleanses it, it moves it around. And
That's
that
right.
is I'm hearing cellular excitation. It's like expanding our cells, and it's uncomfortable. I'm like exhausted today. I'm just like, whoa, everything all, like you said, all at once. And I'm having these really interesting processing. I'm processing different components of myself. And I'm recognizing too, something I wanted to bring up that I thought was really valuable, because this has been coming up in conversations that I've had in not only session, but also with other people, is like like holding on to a certain vibration that it might have brought up certain things for us before. It's like that one favorite song takes you right back to when you felt that way when you listened to that favorite song. And that's encapsulated in that time capsule on that CD, like you said. But what the message I keep getting is we're rewriting our CDs. And it doesn't make it that we never sang that song. It just sounds different to us now. And so it holds a different match. It holds a different frequency. It holds a different. So I'm being shown, like, from my perspective, where I'm at, I'm like, don't care about past life stuff. I don't care about all of, like, I've worked through that. I've processed it. And I've recognized that where I'm at in my stage in my development is those connections that I have through these past life scenarios. That's the word that I'm hearing, because they are scenarios. They're scenes of a movie, of a projection that we experienced on a particular timeline that is no longer in conjunction with this timeline, with the timeline that I'm on now. And I see this because there's a lot of that projection that we can put with other people and on ourselves. Oh, I'm just gonna go galactic for a minute. So I know I've got Andromeda, like I'm all about Andromeda. That's just my thing. But that isn't necessarily, and I might be tuning into Andromedan energies, and I'm tuning into Lyran energies, and I love all that still. And I can tune into perhaps Egyptian timelines or whatever it is, but I'm at that stage, and not everybody's going to feel that way. Some people are still projecting from that scene of that movie that's attached to this past life resonance, residual residue for whatever reason. And I'm just at that space where I'm just like, it doesn't line up for me anymore. And does that make it any less true? Yes and no, from my perspective. It isn't true to who I am anymore. So I can wipe that slate clean. And that's part of where we're coming with karma and all that stuff. It's like, it only holds as much power as I give it, as I believe in it. If I believe that I was wronged in this past life and I'm holding on to all of that belief, whether or not it's true becomes irrelevant. That belief is our truth. I know, I just went, whew.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I've been having a very similar experience to you. And I think that's why you and I have been able to stay connected. It seems as though in some way, shape, or form, we're growing together and we allow each other to grow. And I'm not holding you in any view. I'm not holding you captive in any view. I'm perceiving you as you're continually being renewed. And then, it cross catalyzes my renewal, and we really allow each other to continually expand as we need to, and we hold space for that. And I think it's really powerful, and it's really beautiful. And as I said, renew and view, I was being reminded of the deja vu factor that I've been having again. And deja vu to me is deja vu. It's an opportunity to review an echo or another pattern that's come back in from the viewpoint that we're holding at this current time.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of that cycling back around, and those cycles are the cycles of nature. And nature is is constantly in that cyclical renewal pattern. And we're becoming more aware. We're becoming more aware. Oh, my computer's gonna die. wait an hour. More aware of our own lives. Like we're just getting this deeper clarity. And as we were waking up, and I feel like we still are, like I wouldn't say I'm awake. I'm saying I am in the awakening phase. I'm awakening continually to more and more and
Mhm.
more and more and more. And the going back to sleep phases, like I used to be awake and then asleep, awake and then asleep. That's slowing down. And then the awakening is gaining momentum. So I am, as nature itself, becoming aware of my cycles as nature. And instead of going, at one point I was like, what's happening to me? Oh, something's happening to me now. Oh no, this is happening to me. And then in my awareness of things are happening, I would almost overreact to the
Yeah.
stimulus of experience and my own cycles. So
Yeah.
now I'm just coming into a really deep appreciation and understanding of my cycles and life moving to and through me as life itself. And I'm developing this deeper correspondence with the flow. And so like the turmoil and how I experience turmoil in my being, we've all, you, me, and Jess, we've all noticed that that phase is shorter. It may have
Yeah.
been a few weeks before. Now sometimes for us it's a few hours where it comes in, and then like comes in with the agitation, shifts everything, and we clear it so quickly.
Yeah.
And we're now when something comes, we're almost like honoring the agitation. It's like, ooh, the agitation's here. I wonder what it's going to
Yeah.
bring. We know it's going to come fast. We know the clarity's coming.
Yeah.
Let's just wait for it. Grab
Yeah.
the popcorn. Grab the popcorn. Oh, Carrie's molting. Oh, it's Candace's turn. Oh, it's Jess's turn. Like we've created this little processing plant
Hmm.
to correspond. And it's really beautiful when you can find those moving pillars of light, of space holding that in your life that allow you those
Yeah.
continual renewals and re-reflections.
Yeah.
Those
And I love the
pillars.
fact that you kept saying too, like, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. I'm seeing it more as like, and I do, it's like, why is this happening again? Oh my goodness, I'm seeing this as a pattern. I'm recognizing this is coming up for me again. What distortions do I have around this? Where have I been in a habit? How is this making me feel right now? Why? And so it becomes less of, why is this happening to me? It becomes more of just that shared experience. All of a sudden, I'm sharing this aha with myself. Like, and then we do it with each other because we use, we're kind of the three of us, and we're referring to our friend Jess from Youthera. We're kind of like this support group, and we all met at this around the same time, through, by the way, social media, which is ironic. But so there's this beautiful gift and this beautiful tool that we can all utilize as a resource, which is the social media, and all these beautiful people that we listen to and we are inspired by and inspired from. And but what I'm to come back to it is, it's no longer necessarily that space of we're not in control or we're a victim or it's happening to us. Yes, that's how it felt like a few years ago. And now it's like, oh, this is different. And so I'm really being called to remind everybody that we're all at different stages. And so there becomes this discomfort. By the way, I'm going off on a little branch right now of our tree. There sometimes becomes this discomfort when we're working with others of them not doing the work. That's something else that I think is really powerful to talk about, because the thing that comes up for me all of the time is we're working on ourselves. Whether or not someone else chooses to do that work is not relevant to our own journey. So let me rephrase that. Depends on the situation, of course. If you're in a relationship with someone, if they're not working on themselves, then that makes it relevant to our journey, of course. But what I mean is, as we gain this clarity, And as we come into these layers and shed old skin, right? We're leaving behind and we're letting go, and we're not necessarily attached to, again, back to other people's projections, other people's journeys, other people's expectations, other people's whatever, because ultimately we're just here to have our own experience.
That was so wild. As you were saying projections, I got this like really like feeling in my stomach. So anytime I feel, and like while we're doing our videos, if I feel something in my body or whatever chakra, I just go there and like regroup. I'm like kind of like stirring the energy up there and then settling it.
Yeah.
Social media is a massive projection platform. And a lot of the times, and I was noticing this for myself, I was projecting into it. And sometimes I would project into it too much, and too much projection, not enough introspection, not enough digestion, and allowing the real work to happen within my life experience. So that's, that's a topic for conversation. Social media being a sub reality, right? Like it's its own sub reality that interfaces into our biological and spiritual realities. That's another topic. And our awareness of that has to grow. Our awareness of that, no matter who you are as a human being on this planet, our awareness and our discernment and our skills and abilities really have to start to adapt to this sub-reality that we have engaging with our biology.
Yeah.
And this is something that I talk about with people that I'm working with at my work, through all spectrums of life. Many, many adults that are saying, this is how it's impacting my children. Many adults that are saying, this is how it's impacting me. Like, no matter what you engage with, if you're engaging with social media, we all need to have a really clear, strong understanding of that interrelation.
I was hearing boundary, where it begins, where we begin and it begins, where we begin and it ends.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And we as a human race, like this is a new, I'm hearing expedition, exploration, like it's like going to Mars, but like we're actually having that sort of, when we go into the virtual reality, it's a whole entire sub reality. That means it's infinite. That means it's a portal of infinite potential and energy. And I always hear augmentation. Whenever I start talking about it, I keep hearing augmentation. It's augmenting. It's, it's adjusting. It's infiltrating, and it's overlapping, interloping biological reality. So, we're like this. It's still an experiment. Our awareness and engagement with it as a thing is ongoing. There isn't a period yet. It's still ... to be continued. How is it impacting us? And we're so innocent, and some of us are just so innocent. We go on there and we go in there and we're like, everybody has the greatest intentions. Everybody has the same intentions as I do, not realizing that there are mechanisms in the social reality construct that are intentionally trying to landscape and augment in a certain way. Yeah. So there's multiple different things we can talk about, algorithms, We don't have to go there yet. I think we need to keep going there though. I think that's something that we have to keep talking about. So there's that. And then there's also our spiritual evolvement and our evolvement of our self-identity, who we truly are. Yeah. That's entangled in that sub-reality as well. But it also helps to accelerate us. So there is, because of how fast and intense and interconnected and all of that, that sub-reality can be used for our highest and greatest good. But
Yeah.
there's a maturation that has to come with our level of understanding of it.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because as you were saying, evolve, I'm thinking involve, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, who are we involving ourselves with through this evolutionary? Everyone.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't necessarily, anybody that's got, anybody that's on social media, it's like you're involving yourself with a lot of other people who are on an evolutionary journey that may or may not match with our own, and that's okay. But where this is where our own self, our view of self, our own perspective of who we are is so important to, oops, I lost you. My light just
I'm
changed too. It's kind of funny. All of a sudden I turned orange and
Can you continue for a second? I just have to send a message.
yeah. So where was I? Squirrel. Thinking about all of the, involution. Like what does this involve moving forward? Who is it that we want to be? And it's always a constant, like your dream, and we'll come back to this, about we're constantly having to reassess. We are constantly having to recognize, reassess, regroup, and allow ourselves to just be present with what we're feeling in the present moment. And if we're not sure in ourselves, then other people who are connected to us, and I'm talking about through social media, can easily pull us off track. And the word that had come through, and when I say easily, sometimes it's not easily, sometimes it's a buildup that's been, and again, I hear residual residue. So sometimes we just have to clean that out through intention, through affirmations, and sometimes just by shutting down our platform and restarting. If that's something we choose to do, I'm seeing that's gonna be happening more and more for a lot of teachers out there, or just people in general. The word that had come through that I wrote down earlier was directional distraction through interaction. So it's like, and I'll probably repeat this once Candace pops back on, but it's literally, sometimes we're pulled into distraction because of the direction that other people are projecting, or directional distraction is sometimes important for our own recognition of, oh, no, that's not the path I want to take. That isn't the story I choose to now continue to focus on. That story no longer is relevant for my journey. And that pulls us back into the ability, I'm hearing capacitance, right? So it's capacity, back to what we were talking about, filling up our capacity. Like I feel like, okay, I'm full. I need to shed, regroup, redirect, and then recognize that so when we're doing this interaction, we're doing it for us. Ultimately, it has to be because of us, not because of other people, not because it's someone else needs us to do this. It's because we find joy in this. And I went into 10 different subjects there. Like that was 10 different subsets. We're talking about this. And I think it's valuable that we go back in and we could break up all those little pieces, like the internet, our connection, like mycelium. I mean, we could go into so many different subjects here.
Yeah. I've been listening. I was able to listen to you while I was sending that message that I needed to. So ultimately, it's always, for me anyways, the same answer is like, and I was listening to you, come back in and regroup. It's always directing from our innermost point of presence. And then, coming from that one point, and then how that connects into the infinite expression of life, and always, always coming back in. And at first, in the awakening process, you are just growing your awareness and strengthening your awareness. And meditation is what can help expedite and facilitate that for a lot of people. There's another path that's gaining momentum, which is contemplation, which is more the gene keys. They talk about contemplating and how to contemplate, which is a cross between concentration and meditation. So as we're coming into this greater awareness, sorry, I just got lost for a second.
I know. Well, it's so funny as you're talking. And I want to I think it's funny. Like I said, squirrel, I went into like 10 different things. We're kind of in that energy as well. So I think it's important as you're speaking about this and as you're pulling this all back around, I'm being pulled into, even though I'm being pulled into so many different directions because of information and ahas and all of that, ultimately, I'm being constantly reminded right now, what is my intention behind it? Intentional focus.
Yeah.
And we're kind of talking about two things that are paralleling each other. If that makes sense.
It does. And like even the fact that I got lost, sending my focus out, right? It's like I got lost. And that's exactly what I was just talking about.
I know.
Is literally we go out, 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 and we think that we're going back in, but we're not. So as I was saying, and I got lost, you're growing your awareness and you're waking yourself up as often as you can throughout your day. And then eventually you're awake for more and more time. You're having more and more periods of awakeness. We think that when we wake up in the morning, we're not dreaming anymore, but we are still dreaming all day long. And so we're becoming awake, we're becoming lucid in our own dream as ourselves. So this is my dream of Candace. And I am awakening in this dream that I've created as this filter, as this person, this. And so, part of that is waking up and recognizing that although I love this, I am not this.
Yeah.
But this is a miracle and I will take care of this and I will understand existence through this. And there will be a time where I have to let this go, this experience that I am. And that, that is all life. That is every moment. That is every relationship. That is every bond. You'll have to eventually part with that in the physical, but you can hold that within yourself, which is, another, as people that we love pass away, we recognize that they're living within us. Oh, now I'm carrying them in my heart. Oh, now that's all in my heart. Oh, so it's drawing us back into ourselves as we recognize it's all one with us.
Yeah.
So I'll say it again, but like we're growing our awareness and we're waking up more and more.
Yeah, I love the fact that when you're saying awake, like we hear this awakening, wake up, awake. If for me, I'm always bringing it back. It's awareness. It's levels of awareness. It's all, and I always talk about, I was just telling somebody this the other day, and I've said this, for example, to my mom. It's hilarious. I'm just like, look, it's like the movie The Matrix, right? You take the red pill, then you take another red pill, and then it's like a never ending layer of reality, partly because we're creating that in real time, in reality. Like it's like we're in it, creating it through our perspective and through our evolution and our changing at HOUR changing. We are changing time, right? What is that, David Bowie? Time can't change me, I can't change time. But it's like, but we're creating from a different place because we are different than we were before.
Our awareness is growing. And that can also go in reverse. People can be at a point of awareness and they can go in
keep going.
Do you think this is part two?
Yeah, right. Now we're going to start fresh into a huge thing. As you were speaking, I didn't mean to cut you off with that, but I wanted to come back to capacitance because the word that we had been saying earlier was capacity. And that's been coming up for me a lot. And I just wanted to kind of play with that because we had just covered so many topics. I actually lost direction for a moment, which we don't usually do. We stay on, but that's something I want to say is relevant for the energies right now. Like, don't you feel that that's important to even talk about? Like, we're so multidimensional, yet we're finding refocus, we're refocusing. And at this, we're going within, but we're expanding out at the same time. It's not like contraction. Go ahead.
No, I'm feeling what you're saying. So you go.
Yeah. So what it is it's like we're in this space of it feels so big that it's easy to get lost in it, more so I think than it's ever been. And in addition to that, that's part of the beauty of it. But that can be very uncomfortable, like I said earlier. And what I'm seeing is we've got this, like all this solar flare activity, all of these collective, I call them bursts of energy, bubbles. Like if a big group of people has an aha, it's the 100th monkey effect, kind of. So we're having, I'm getting goosebumps. We're having all of these ahas, and it's not just 100, it's infinite. So we're having this 100th monkey effect, constant, it's happening. And it's changing our awareness so rapidly, right? And that's just where we're at right now at this particular stage, at this moment in time, as we're speaking on the 10th of July, which is when we're recording this. But I'm going to go back to capacity, the ability of a system to store an electric charge. The ratio of the change in an electric charge in a system to the corresponding change in its electric potential. By the way, the symbol is C. I just feel like that's so.
I love it. And that's our core, right? Our core capacity as we're expanding. And yeah.
And it's saying to the corresponding change in the electric potential.
Yeah.
So it's the potentials are constantly changing. Therefore, how much we are expanding to is constantly changing. And that's part of the reason why it's so uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you're still expected of your reality construct to keep up with appearances, to keep up with duties, to keep up with your regular day-to-day, you know? So it's a lot.
It's a
I
lot.
wanted to bring it back to the keys a little bit. So our life's work right now as a collective is highlighted in the energy of moving from immaturity to expansion. And the chart that I'm looking at right now is in line for the server. And, you know, we can look at the server.
Oh, yeah.
The internet server, right? The server that you're using. Or, you know, you and I were playing with this before we came on, was like, our expansion is the server. You know, moving from immaturity to expansion, that is how we're serving. That's our ultimate way of being in service right now. And sometimes that looks completely different from the place that we were holding before, because we're allowing ourselves to go into that expansion, which means letting go of certain things, people, places, and things. And that may be for a time, or that may be permanently. We don't know. But we're trusting in the expansion, and it's uncomfortable. And that can be incredibly uncomfortable if you are sharing on social media and there is a held or perceived view of you.
Yes.
Or you have a band and you want to reinvent yourself. It can be incredibly uncomfortable. So I'm going down into the evolution sphere now, which is where the earth is in. And I believe it's the unconscious earth, but that's a whole other story. So the evolution sphere is what grows us, what challenges us, what is the antagonist that we're dealing with. And it's moving from the level of greed, and the energy of greed, and up into aspiration. And from that, it goes into ascension. And the line 4 again is in love and community. So think about, in love and community, the level of greed. And
Mhm.
when you think of greed, you think of mine, or like for the one, the self, I have to take, someone else has to be lower in order for me to be up here, competition.
That has to do with serving as well.
It
It's
has to
like,
do
I'm
with
serving this person because that's what I came here to do. And I
Mhm.
am, that's back to the guru. I'm hearing greed.
Ooh, whoa.
Feed
Yeah,
me,
I'm the
feed
one.
me. I
I'm
need
the
this in order to be fed.
Woo. Okay, so that's really huge. And that kind of comes back to check yourself before you wreck yourself as well.
I love that. That's like our theme of the year.
Yeah, so,
And this
you
is
know,
relevant. Like, I have to check myself before I wreck myself all the time. Like,
so
wow,
relevant.
checks and balances.
It's so relevant for some of the experiences that I had myself in coming forward and sharing and making videos and feeling um, projections upon you, like people's views, like, oh, because you're speaking like this, or you're presenting like this, you must be this.
This is who
And
you are. Mhm.
I'll make a post on what I would consider an off day or a agitation day where I'm having a certain frequency that I'm being guided to share because it's a catalyst.
Yeah,
And a lot of people can relate and plug into that.
yeah.
And I'll have somebody say underneath, "Oh, this is not like you."
Oh yeah, yeah,
Who am I? Do you know who I am? I don't. Like,
yeah.
still figuring out what the I am is. And I'm recognizing it's infinite and that
Mhm,
it's not this. I'm not
mhm.
this. I am the shifting, changing, and I'm also the thing that doesn't shift and change. Like, so for someone to come and even say that to me, um, shows me like that in a sense is not it's not the intention that I made the post with. But then it's like, do I engage with that?
Yeah,
Because that is an invitation to, it's not the correspondent that it's just, so it kind of like, it's almost like a sticky, like you're like, oh, sticky, okay, whoops, didn't I I touched it. Now it's on my hands. Oh, there's a movie it was a childhood movie. I don't know if you've ever seen The Rascals, but they get this, not the Rascals, the Little Giants. They're playing football and they get this tar on their hands, and the kid's like, got it on his hands. It's so sticky. And he's like, how do I get this off? And then he tries to wipe it on his shirt. And then it's like, he can't get it off of it. And it's just him.
well, I think that's so funny because as you're talking about that, I'm seeing tar, like literally, like I'm seeing the tar pits, and I'm seeing like, don't get stuck in other people's tarnishing tar pits, because that's the past. That's old, sticky already. As soon as you make that projection, that's it. That's old energy. It's no longer. It's not necessarily even relevant. But I want to just pause just for a second. Yeah. So I might have to pause again in just a second, but two things just really came to mind. The stickiness, the tar pit, the past, that's a projection. What somebody else thinks, that's an energy. And our thoughts are based on our own perspectives and perceptions that are constantly shifting and changing, or they're attached to particular reality subsets or timelines that are then associated with our beliefs, back to what that belief is holding for me. What I believe does not need to hold on to someone else's beliefs. Like, that's separate, even though everything's connected and we're all together. And you had posted something beautiful like a long time ago, which was let go of me. Do you remember that post? And I was like, oh, that's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
do. I
Like, let
do.
go of me. This isn't this internet stuff. All these cords and connections, we're being invited to let go and not hang on to our beliefs about anything. Now, while at another level, Well, then if it's true, it may have been true. And I'm just going to talk about past timelines and even past life stuff. Like this has been coming up a lot over and over and over again, which is ironic, over and over and over again. The karmic wheel, that has shifted. From my perspective, all of that stuff can be done. It can be over. And I think you brought up something that was really powerful earlier about not only cycles and cyclic cycles, immaturity to maturity, right? I don't need to hang on to this because I feel like that past part of me needs to be healed or whatever it is. We can take a really long time, or we can do it immediately by choice and by belief in this new energy, especially. Whereas before, we may not have been able to do it as easily. We may not have, we may have needed to process. And I was shown this like past life stuff, like so many people think that they have to experience this because they had I mean, we've all known people in past lives. Most of our neighbors are probably people we've, known in a previous lifetime. Most of our coworkers, our family. But essentially we can choose right now to say, I'm done. We're done. And that's what I think is happening for a lot of people. And then there's the other people that are going the opposite way, saying, oh, no, that's not the way it is. That's not my truth. But what your truth is may not be the same truth as somebody else, no matter what that person might have experienced with you in a previous lifetime, or relationship or friendship. I mean, we could go into so many different subsets here.
Yeah, for my own experience, it's just been what's happening now is the most potent, and how I'm facilitating the now moment and how I'm experiencing that, digesting that, and having that land, and how present am I with everything that I'm being given immediately.
Yeah.
And then if there is a cyclical energy coming back around, it's happening in my now moment. So it's still now. That is the most relevant, relevant. I'm hearing relevant.
Oops, I'm going to pause just for a moment and close my door. Sorry, my husband came home. We had to regroup. But Candace, you had been talking about relevance and cycles, and I wanted to get back to the whole greed thing, but you were saying relevance, relevancy, releve, relive,
Yeah.
reliance, self-reliance.
Oh, yeah, the cyclical energy, how that's relevant in the now moment as we relive it, or re-aliven it, or relieve. We almost feeling that we have vents, and we just let it vent through our expression. My goodness, there's so much. So like, I'm just looking at the chart again, and we were talking about greed, and like we probably don't have time. It's the infinity that we're reading, right? We're reading the the ever expanding reality as we're experiencing it. So it just goes on and on and on. But in the radiance sphere, what brings us radiance? It's line 6, the nurturer, and moving from agitation to taking initiative. So, beyond just getting agitated, that lead us into initiation, and let that taking initiative, and let that initiative bring us into the awakening. And in the nurturing, the nurturer. So line 4 and line 6 together, just seeing them like loving community, nurturer, the server. And then we move into the purpose. It's in the cells. It's in our cellular reception. It's like in the deepest self, to all the way to how we express. And so it's like the chart is almost saying like the expansion of ourself is um, serving the community with love, moving from doing things from that level of greed into doing things to aspire. You're just aspiring into a greater sense and aspect of yourself, and that itself gives back to the community. That moving from the level of agitation into just taking initiative in every moment, nurturing every moment of your experience for self, and that becomes what you give to the community. Sustainability in your own self, in your own field, in your own expression.
Yeah, that's what I
Makes
was hearing too, was the sustainability. We've been talking about that a lot too. And greed is hunger, right? So
Mhm.
what are we feeding ourselves with? And how are we feeding our experience? And if we have this continuous hunger can move us, can be a driving force, but at the same time, when does it become greed?
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of layers and levels we could explore just on that, around that particular energy, right? And it's funny because as I focus on this, I don't know if you're feeling this, but it's like, ooh, that becomes that focus. Now I don't have all these distractions, and now I'm sensing into the bigger message.
Mhm.
What's behind all of this driving force right now? And it's funny because what we're seeing outside of us is greed. That's been the driving force. So as a reflection, how can that show me my own sustainability, my own resourcefulness?
And greed and immaturity, like with the gene keys, there's always a programming partner, which is like a catalyzing partner of energy. And so the shadow of immaturity is pinging on the shadow of greed. And you can see how greed is an immature understanding of the relationship of reality.
And greed is wanting something. Like, I want that for myself, but where is that hunger coming from really?
Yeah. And recognizing that when we are behaving in a greedy way, we are taking from ourselves, when we really understand the greater relationship of the environment and nature as ourself, and we start to see everything as an aspect of ourself. And
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was called to look up immaturity, the etymology,
yeah.
and it's not ripe,
Wow. That's
not fully
so
developed,
not fully developed, not ripe yet. Um, as
which
we
means
move
you
from
can't eat it.
yeah.
You don't feed it. It's not meant to be fed. Let me pause this for a minute.
No, 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 that's okay. Um,
It's
and
like you don't
then
want to eat fruit that isn't ripe.
yeah,
That's not what we really need to feed ourselves with.
and then and that'll upset your insides, but the our purpose sphere is moving from unease to intuition into clarity. So
Mhm.
there's that clarity again. So our purpose is to use our deepest intuition and to bring that into clarity. So intuition starts as unease for a lot of people. They'll get a bad vibe or a off feeling. And then sometimes that goes into fear instead of intuition. So they'll get unease and they won't necessarily know what to do with it. And it kind of just stays at that level of, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. And it's that we can go back to immaturity. It's not ripe. The biofeedback system is not ripe yet. You don't know how to understand your feelings. And sometimes you because of the undeveloped system, some of those feelings aren't actually our intuition. They can just be, um,
A belief, an attachment, a projection,
yeah. And
an
we're thinking that,
unresolution,
yeah. So
discomfort.
we'll think that that's our guidance system at the beginning when we're just starting to awaken. We'll think that a lot of these lodged, almost want to say yuckies, like these unfinished businesses in our body.
Residue.
Yeah, sometimes we'll read the residue as our intuition, as higher energies hit us and and paying on these places that really just need resolution, love, acceptance to be felt, seen, and heard,
Yeah.
we'll take that as I was guided
Oh, I lost you.
because I felt this way.
Can you repeat that again? I lost you for a minute. So I was guided to.
Oh, so we'll sometimes take those as our guidance. Oh, I was guided to do this because I felt this. When at the very beginning stages, we just really need to feel and not even necessarily act on it. Some of this stuff just needs to be felt and seen within our own body and being.
Yeah, and let it go sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
these guidance that we get, and I know this is something I've done before too, and I still sometimes have to really sit with it, but I love the fact that you're like, I was guided to. I was guided to do this. I was guided. So there is a little bit, I think this is really relevant for right now, and we're probably gonna have to get going in just a minute, but I maybe do a little light language, but it becomes less of it starts to shift for us a little bit. And I've said it all a lot too. I was guided to, or I was called to do this. But realistically, who was called? Who guided me to do that? And why was I guided to that? And ultimately, sometimes being guided is our higher self. And other times that guidance, like you said, isn't our intuition. It's coming from, and I want to get away from this idea of higher self. Like we are that. We are embodying it. I know we have guides and angels and all of these helpers, but more and more, again, part of this maturity is us becoming our guides, is us coming into this higher space of knowing. And it becomes less of I was guided to, and it becomes more of this is what it is. But until we're using our discernment and processing certain things and letting go of the things that aren't really our guidance, it's sometimes attachments, emotions, and things like that, then it's a relationship with ourself that we then start to better understand. And sometimes we're guided to do things, like you said, just to process it or just to have that recognition. It doesn't mean we have to attach ourselves to an outcome. And it doesn't mean that it actually has to actionate into something, right? It just is, and we can clear it just by recognition sometimes. I know I went in again to 10 different places.
Yeah, we're coming into a greater awareness and understanding of the impulses and the stimuli and the sensations. It's like if, for example, oh, I want to eat something sugary, but then another part of us overrides that and goes, that wouldn't be good for us. I know that there's that craving there. Let's go this way. So that's the same thing as we're coming into our deeper intuition and guidance system. As our own awareness grows, certain things were really relevant in investigating as guidance before that turn out not to be as we grow. And it's like I was being shown this analogy of elementary school, and like in kindergarten, you're really over monitored by your teacher, and as you get older they let you independently work more and more and more, to the point where once you're in university the teacher just throws some stuff at you and you're really expected to be quite independent in your research and everything. It's like, no, you've been given all the guidance, you've incorporated it, now you are your own guide.
Yeah.
So we want to see what you're going to come up with and present to the class and show us as if you're the expert.
Yeah.
And go off on your own, do the field research, there you go. So, that's also part of that.
Whew. We can go into so many different directions. We could bring it back into the gene keys maybe a little bit. And then do you want to do some light language, or do you feel like maybe we should save that for a different video?
Yeah, maybe we can save that for a different time.
It's kind of what I was feeling too. Did you want to end on the Anything else you wanted to add with what's happening in this circle? You called it sphere of radiation. I was
Well,
seeing rainbows, the rainbow circle.
so I'll just probably end on the pearl of this chart, which is like the culmination of everything. I haven't gone through all of the different keys, but it's like, what is the big takeaway from everything? And it's Gene Key 17, moving from the shadow of opinion, which I think we were talking about in our last video, alienated, being pinned down by something, into the gift of farsightedness. So it's like really zooming out, and zooming in, like you're coming from the center, but then you also have access to the expansive. And then the acidic frequency of that is omniscience. And it's like the I in the center of all things is sort of connected to the heart center as well. That it's like it's hard to put it into words,
Yeah.
right? Because omniscience. So it's access to almost like the greatest field of view within the point of whatever you're perceiving.
Ooh, well, when you say
Versus
field of view, I'm seeing field, like it's a
field
field.
of you, field of you.
Yeah.
And the field of you could be this great tree that you are expanding into, the tree of your being, the I that am. And another analogy that I was being shown was like this little tree that's growing up may need the shelter of all the trees around it in the time being. It may need all the information from the root system and the information gathered from the grandmother tree, but then eventually that tree will be that grandmother tree if all goes to plan, stays. And then it will find itself in that position, doing that for the next trees that are growing up.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, when you were saying trunk, I was seeing like a trunk that you keep things in, like a treasure trunk, treasure chest, the heart, the trunk, branching out, expanding, right? Moving into that space of, what was the word that we were using earlier with the C? I just went poof. Like I went into so many different, it was like, whew, I just got this wave of huge energy that I'm just kind of feeling into.
Also is like capacity.
That's what it was.
How's that
Capacitance.
sound? Yeah. So capacitant, capacity. City is like the acidic frequency. It's the flowering, right?
Yeah.
So cap at city, cap at acidic frequency. It's kind of like,
yeah. And what are you going to cap yourself at? Is it this done? We're capped off? No, this is the cap is off. Graduation cap is being thrown. We can either choose to hang on to it and wear it, or we can say, oh, I'm moving on to this next. And it's so funny because as you were saying this, I had written about the genes, because you're doing gene keys. I had written about, I can't remember what the gene is called. It's called the jumping gene. And I'd written about the big cheese, which was actually came from the word quo, which is like quid pro quo, which is having to do with, because we had been talking about genetic impulses. And part of this is all attached to what I wrote about in a very strange way. It's hilarious. Like all the words you were using, I was just like, oh, those are exactly what I was just looking up the meanings to the other day. The reason I'm bringing that up is our heart, back to the trunk of the tree, back to that space, that is shifting our capacity, our capacitance, in order to hold charge and in order to charge forward and expand out into more of who we already are, which brings us back into that space of maturity, right? Like you said, the child tree is now the grandmother tree. And that our roles shift and change, as do, like, I'm seeing the rings on the tree, right? That what time are we in right now? And that's where, by us doing the inner work, we know what it is. And then we expand out a little bit more, and then we feel into who we are becoming. I could go into so many different layers.
Becoming that tree, becoming that next tree in line, allowing yourself to grow into that serves the community. And it can be, some people don't want to experience that. They want to get back in line where they were before and go up to that point again and then go back online because it's known. But when you expand out into the next tree of your being, you're coming into the unknown in a sense. You know this, but you're going into another field of unknown, which can almost feel like you don't know all over again. And that is scary. Some people want to stay where they're an expert, where it's like, yeah.
I'm seeing that having to do with greed as well.
Yeah.
Like, I know this has fed me before, so I'm going to stay here and keep gathering so that I don't have to become uncomfortable. Or it's not even that. It's sometimes it's like not knowing that discomfort is leading to something bigger. It's too unknown. But it goes back to know thyself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, we could keep going and going, but
it's the song that never ends, right? And it goes on and on, my friends.
So funny. My husband would call it the never ending story. It's like the never ending movie.
Is.
So we'll end on that note, but don't go just yet. But I'm gonna I'll end the recording. Okay. Oh man, I there's so many things that we just pinged off of, but we'll do this again to be continued. I'm gonna end on this and I'm gonna thank everybody who's tuned into this, whether whenever that is, and say namaste and thank you guys, and thank you, Candace. And I'm gonna hit stop recording now.